Okay, everybody. One last set of notes for you to finish up for today. I'll try and make it as quick as I can. Now, the last few notes talk about these conditional statements. All right. Conditional statements, we use them all the time. It has a lot, we use them a lot in logic and reasoning, which is basically what algebra is. You have to use a lot of logic and reasoning to figure out what's going on or what's missing. So when you make a conditional statement, written in this form, it's usually if this happens, then that thing is going to happen. Now, here's an example. If your feet smell and your nose runs, then you're built upside down. Now, if I skip ahead to the next slide, it's going to talk about there are these two parts, the hypothesis, then the conclusion. And that's what these two are. This part is the hypothesis. So if this happens, let's hypothesize that if this happens, if your feet smell and your nose happens to run, then here's the conclusion. All right, the conclusion is you must be built upside down. Now, not all statements are really good ones. Okay, like sometimes people make these if-then statements, but they don't really work out. And so that's what this last section of the notes is about, making sure that the conditional statement is true. And if not, knowing how to fix it. So let's look at this next one about writing them. Conditional statements can be written in if-then form to emphasize which part of the hypothesis and which is the conclusion. So first of all, vertical angles are congruent. If you write it as a conditional statement, if two angles are vertical, then they are congruent. Okay, so this right here is not really an if-then statement. It's not a conditional statement. So you have to frame it in a little bit different way. Writing it as an if-then statement makes it more clear, as the notes say. What is the hypothesis and what is the conclusion? Down here, seals swim. That technically is, a conditional statement, but it says if an animal swims, then it is a seal. Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about being true or false. That's what I was trying to get at originally. A conditional statement is false only when the hypothesis is true. Hypothesis is true, but the conclusion is false. So if the conclusion is false, you can prove that by coming up with a counterexample. So it's a way to show that the statement is not always true. You guys do this all the time when you're fighting or arguing with each other. So here's an example. If you live in Missouri, then you live in Kansas City. Well, that is an if-then statement, but it's not necessarily true. I can come up with a counterexample like, I live in Missouri, but I live in Parkville. That's not really Kansas City. Or I live in Missouri, but I live in St. Louis. That's even more profound or pronounced. So not everyone who lives in Missouri lives in Kansas City. That's why the conditional statement is not true. And there's lots of counterexamples to make it false. I'm going to keep going here. I'm going to switch on down. I'm not going to talk about approximating square roots. Lucky you. I'm not going to work on this right now. So instead, I'm going to direct you to this homework assignment. Hopefully you've got time here in class to work on it. Maybe you won't have to take it home at all. I'm going to post this in OneNote, so you can do it there, or you can do it on paper, whichever is preferable for you. I will be in class tomorrow. I hope to go over our tests with you. I hope you have a great night. Thanks, guys. Bye. Bye.